This room is wrecked.
Well, that's true. I mean, you read the things that are real, could cause death.
No, the light
That's the
will come
only thing
on.
I've seen that actually recommends this. That's the Jane Horrocks
So if I start talking, how does it sound? Is it okay? Because I'm freaking out actually, because according to this system, the microphone isn't working. So am I audible? So so that means you will need to make sure you're audible too. I'm very sorry, I don't know how to fix this. I wonder if is it because we had to unplug things, or I don't know. According to this light, the microphone is working, but it's not.
Yes.
We've had a really smooth start so far, haven't we? So far, nothing's working, and we just said that we love lovely colleagues who kind of like unplug things, and then they rush out and they like leave everything like
I think the
this.
sound is recording, so that's...
Yeah. So the recording will be working. You can sort of hear us. It just means that our kind guests will need to sort of speak up a little bit. Yeah. Okay, guys, I'm really sorry about all of this. I'm not a tech person, especially, so I wouldn't even know where to start trying to fix things. But I think we'll survive. We'll survive. Let's just get going. Huge thank you for coming. This looks like this is the major April event after our little Easter break, and we will have quite a rich, intense little hour and a half together with the four writers who will be reading one after the next, after each other, but without a break. That was sort of the general consensus. That means that if you, of course, need to sort of quietly leave and then return, feel free to do that. You are not stuck in the room, so that's absolutely fine. After the reading, what we normally do these days is that we have a little bookstore. So I actually haven't had the chance yet to take a look at who's got what, but I'm pretty sure that we are launching certainly one book today for sure. We're not launching any other books. So we've got Simon Perril's new collection out, which is sort of like literally, as I can feel, it's out of the printer, freshly out of it. It's still warm. It certainly has a new smell. That's really nice. I will mention that in a second when I introduce you, Simon. Okay, so the four readers for tonight. Very warm welcome to Simon Perril, Francis Presley. I'm just looking at the order of readers. Peter Robinson and Simon Smith, and this is the order we will be hearing the poets reading. I'm going to introduce the first two writers first, and then Peter and Simon once Frances has finished her reading, purely because I've got quite substantial sort of biographies here, so I want you to actually take in what I'm reading rather than rushing through the titles and the various projects. It's a very rich full sort of like biographies we're talking about. Somebody called it the Shearsman event. Yeah, who was it? I forgot. JR. No. Who made the comment that this is actually a Shearsman showcase? Oh, was it? But I think it was also someone else on Facebook. I think it was J.R.
He
Carpenter.
said something like, there seems to be a lot of Shearsman poets. And I said, well, it's very hard to avoid them.
So if you're happy with that, let's call it the Shearsman showcase. I'm absolutely fine with that. We like Tony and we also like Shearsman. I think they're doing a fantastic job. So I'm going to start with the first Shearsman poet, Simon Perril, who's a writer, an academic and a collagist, the poet and the collagist. His poetry publications include, and this is the first time I'm actually mentioning the book we are launching tonight, Two Duets with Occasion, and it actually came out by Shearsman in 2024. And then there is a kind of whole series of Shearsman, mostly Shearsman collections. The Slip it was a 2020 Shearsman publication in the final year of my 40s. That was a 2018 Shearsman book. Beneath, a 2015 one. Archilochus on the Moon was a 2013 collection. Newston Splinter, actually, I'm breaking the cycle here, an open house, 2012 collection, and Nitrate, a sold publication, a Clutch of Odes, an Oystercatcher publication from 2009, and Hearing is itself suddenly a kind of singing, again, a sold book. Simon's poetic essay, Good to Think with My Surrealism, along with collages and poetry, have just appeared in Shuddhashar FreeVoice, 37. As a critique, Simon Perril has written widely on contemporary poetry, editing the Sword Companion to John James and Tending the Vortex, the Works of Brian Catling. His article, whom I always wanted to have up here, but it never happened in the end for some reason, unfortunately, and it's too late now. His article, Simon's article on Metis, or What the Squid and the Octopus Taught Me About Practice Research, appeared in Writing in Practice 2027 piece. Simon is a professor of poetic practice at the Montfort University in Leicester, who will be reading from, I'm assuming mostly from the new collection in a second. The second writer who we welcome very warmly today, Frances Presley, was born in Derbyshire of Dutch, Javanese, and English parents. I'm reading this because you've given me the script in 1952. Sorry, I'm just realizing that I'm giving away a lot of biographical information, but I've been given this script, so I'm not doing anything inappropriate. Frances grew up in Lincolnshire and Somerset and currently lives in London. She studied modern literature at the universities of East Anglia and Sussex. She worked as an information specialist in community development and at the Poetry Library. She collaborated with artist Irma Irsara on a project about women's clothing and the fashion trade. This was called Automatic Cross Stitch, another press publication which came out in 2000, and also with poet Elizabeth James in Neither the One Nor the Other, a 1999 1989 collaboration. And yeah, am I doing it? Yes. The title sequence of Paravan, New and Selected Poems, was a sold book, which came out in 2004, a response to 9/11 and the IRA bomb sites in London. And here comes a bit of Shearsman. Lines of Sight was a 2009 Shearsman collection, which focuses on Exmoor's Neolithic stone sites, which also feature in a collaboration with visual poet Tila Brading in stone settings, a 2010 Odyssey publication. An alphabet for Alina with artist Peter Jan Skelt exploits the lexical and visual possibilities of an alphabet for girls. 2012 publication. And then Horse for Hazel, again, is a Shearsman publication, 2014. It's a text which initiates a new poetic syntax of marginal trees and languages, a project which then continues in solo Leaf Press publication in 2016 with images by Irma Irsara again. Other Unseen, again, is a Shearsman collection, 2019, concerns Ada Lovelace, the daughter of Lord Byron, mathematician and computer visionary who lived on Exmoor. It was also a collaboration with Tila Brading again. Ada Dada, culminated in Ada Dada 2022 project or collaboration. And then there is another huge thing, again, collected poems in 2 volumes, work between 73 and 2020 was published again by Shearsman in 2022. There's a lot more to say here, but I'm just going to finish off with a couple of other projects. Frances is doing a lot of things, as you can grasp. She co-translates from Norwegian poetry and really does a kind of wide range of collaborative projects, which because of time I'm just going to skip for now, but I'm just going to mention that Black Fence Viral, a 2020 work which started in 2020, is written on a slow, for example, another example of new work again, is written on a slow train through East Anglia's flat agricultural landscape of black peat, once marshland. In this project, Viral refers both to COVID and to a text generator known as the Markov chain, and its strange rearrangement of texts resembles a viral assault. The first part of this project, Black Fence Viral, was published as a literary pocketbook in 2021 by Stephen Hitchens. And I'm just going to leave you to read now.
Hello, everybody. Thanks ever so much for the invitation to read. It's brilliant. So thank you. Speak up. Kate, we'll do. Okay, so I'm launching then this evening 2 Duets with Occasion, and I'm going to read basically from both halves of the book. One of the pieces is called Sundeck Set Cogitation, and it engages with Claude Lévi-Strauss, famous anthropologist. It's less well known that he had literary aspirations. He wanted to be a novelist in a Conradian sea voyage type kind of situation. And he wrote this meticulous, really beautiful description of a sunset on from the deck of a ship on his first voyage in the early 30s to Brazil. But also he made another very influential voyage amongst other refugees leaving occupied France in 1941, where he was on the deck of the Captain Paul Lemerle alongside André Breton and lots of other famous people. But he struck up a friendship and a correspondence with Breton. And I wanted to put those two things together. So sun deck set cogitation is an attempt to collapse reading and writing and to treat this description of a sunset through various ways that I don't have time to examine in more detail now, but there's a kind of essay at the back here. So I'm going to read that, and then I'm going to read from the other sequence that I'll say something about then. So this is the first, I call them deck, first walk through the Levi-Strauss sunset text. This is sun deck set cogitation, and hopefully there's going to be some visuals, but that may well not happen. So let's see. Deck 1. For one omenon, according morning, clear speculation aspect, betrays concrete, oscillates indivisible incidents, mixes more different, an overture at the end, the face of immediate weather, lowering rain, the early during, frothy guarantee, meteorological as rest, declared process, sunset is quite a different matter. Offered spectacle battles, tangible form, succeeded at lower dawn, twilight information setting. Thermometer case phases, tides less civilized, combines buffeted consciousness. Fluffy theatres glow, triple knocking performance, remembering blinks. Relive fatigue, calm water arms, recalling opaque forces, dimly war in thick congealed blur, rocking golden light, slight boat curve to rock the matter of fact, purely geometrical transition, crossing isotherms, high rain curves, the impression of a change of planet itinerary, of unpracticed eye, followed invisible lands, present beyond vex horizon. It seemed to them shut, narrow days expiate, transported limbs, made too soft by sleeping. Protracted mornings fill, slightest effort provided, depths engines, realise making the latter wander about the body. Some solitary dabs, ventilator blue, paint nautical miles, vaguely lapping corridors, proof the crystal sea. Rusty detached west, hooked complex horizon moulding towards immobilised clouds, carved confused spurts, gilded dark relief. Dappled devoid decomposing looking into luminous twists, see rose structure, edge scattering border remnants, only the dissolving sea, variegated flagstones, dwindled cosmological, rested dolmen snorted mass. Turn one's back, ramparts glistening ethereal, superimposed sun, hillocky mauve gleams, sideways silvered lighting. Cluttered celestial reefs, meanwhile opaque sectors, octopus the optical, as if a vaporous fist, grotto's light, along time's pink mitten, find intensity withdrawn. All glistening, fingers appeared cut when the circular beams clenched fresh in fall. Only an architect acts sun behind distinct rays. Every board second complexity appears flattened, plastic, fantastic, provisional with toy darkness. The first phase place, inimitable, low egg yolk spilling, splashing shapes, not yet touching, attending instant structure, misty cordillera, migratory black objects void the upper edge, indefinable gleaming, solid voluminous being began the colour of one lazy moment. Flat it became occupied, vermilion sheet metal, glow laminated, little by little structures, evening from behind, withdrew eventually, carried whirl, melted networks, spirally placed tally. Directions distributed obliquely into violin bow spectrum, said declined out. In an ever thinner moment, property showed itself, darkening individuality, spreading arbitrary spun glass, heated through blurred outline, transparent stability. The opposite horizon slowly dissolved, blues blurred layer, so touch very different colours, at amplified intervals, place seconds towards acid mauve. Repeat parts of the sky, poured blend at a great materialized height. New details outline innumerable fade. Someone rubbing distant visions from right to left until sideways slowly spectacle. The clearly disappeared, cleansed slate, taking a duster on a sky rose clasped under microscope effulgence. Pink filaments, sun skeleton forms in the direction of plump volume. Depth effects, crowned red substance, cement the glistening low sides. Viewed change, hardened into uniform. The sky no longer held anything. Whimsical charcoal protuberances attend anguish alchemy, squeeze changes, nothing more mysterious than the series, complementing beginning, mixing night stealth, screen photographic plate escape, engraving tapering, porphyry points, oblique granite coast, stretching parallel illusion, inert peppered sky flooded, turned scorching sheet, shadow water rest reflects, always further, mirage dinner turned out, metal transition, gave engendered way, opaque change usual, soon revealed trick, sky, hollow stage, set shadows themselves, immutable form. And the second sequence is actually first in the book, is a sequence called 45 Days in the Company of Robert Walser. And it concerns, well, if anybody's read Jacob von Gunten, which is Walser's amazing novel that was filmed as Institute Benumenta, it's about a school for servants. And, well, it seems like a very apt allegory for working in higher educational institutions, shall we say. And 45 days is the consultation period that institutions must abide by if they're making more than 100 people redundant. You can read a series of them here. Then. 1. Robert Walser, patron saint of servitude, allow me to greet you on a grey morning in May after a working bank holiday. I request instruction concerning how to move about this new workplace, governing the life stuff we must wriggle through, into yawning facts that prise us open at the mouth, to pour in sheer awe at the large world hidden beneath the words. 2. Kindly mark us, Robert, the very small, as we are trained, and walk with me down the linoleum corridors of the new Institute Benumenta, over crunchy crosshatch carpets. Lights flicker in the lecture theatre, winking and sinking, a dance of performance indicators, extraterrestrial at play across the ceiling. So, we quanta settle into the subject, learn the subatomic servitude of working life misbehaves under the right conditions. 5. Under the gaze of numbered days, I imagine my vice, to be secretly pleased and observe myself being slightly robbed. I received no tour of the palace of calculations, humming transactions, but sat, Robert, in the darkening classroom, observing the fates, busy in the sticky corner, knitting and crocheting columns of XL mesh, digital honeycomb, power grids, my prepared cells. 9. Robert, last night I watched my own sleep become a curled caesura tadpole, tax the box of my body and forge a lyric tract in tremble there, sorting the shadows into self-portraits, all black, suspended on the cool glass of a microscope slide. Robert, this inflammatory morning, I fell into the day from a great height and was dreamt of by the rules that think of everything. My lips folded and pressed like a cheap suit, worn at interview for the role of myself, outsourced to the darkness, nesting under desks in abandoned classrooms. The lesson today was in becoming a percussion instrument, thus empowering my professional development as an exploded keyboard, a piano prepared for the enhancement of my inner organs by addition of rubber, bolts, screws, paper clips, weather stripping, and assorted kitchen implements, forks thrum under my strings, tuned for unspecified forces, all positions and sizes of mutes determined by playful experiment. Robert, I remain your comrade, servant, sonic savant, a snare drum left out in a hailstorm. Robert, I recall the stench at the Institute barbecue, how they turned the words over and over till they blackened and no longer squeaked like a mouthful of halloumi. I avoided all thoughts of those ancestral alchemists in need of the dried blood of hominis rufi to pulverize amongst the powders, how they pushed the paste onto copper plates to soak, anticipating gold. Robert, now we have become so close. It is only fair I disclose certain secrets underpinning the new ways of working, how to wear those internal masks to protect shapes a face might make under audit. And after, I shall share my hard labour at a new paper exposing alchemical management techniques, expressing sympathy with the struggles of other substances in their perfected passage towards stone. Robert, of course I'm familiar with the argument of my being, but hell, I did not expect to defend its thesis for an audience of accountants. Yet we must let the poem stroll amongst the bogus and breathe, for I is another fine mess to be gotten into, like the best escapology. Practices of force permit me this privilege to annoy and call out the shortcomings of Michel Pancati's list of 10 kinds of stone. Yes, I bow to earths, salts and nitrates, clays and acid juices that include metallic inks. I acknowledge oily juices such as pit coal and sulphur, marine stones being concretion of sea foams. I offer congratulations to earths like the sarcophagus of Assos, whose meat-eating tombs proved so capable of destroying form in 40 days. Yet to these stones, stag's tears, pearls, buffonite buttons housed in the head of a toad, bezoar, lapidus idiomorphoi, and the humble marble, let us add, from the saline depths of camaraderie, the 21st century work. It's probably me done, isn't it?
I wasn't looking.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm going to read from Black Friends Viral, which Aggie already introduced for me. Sometimes I have to do that. So there's not much to add, really. I mean, I had quite a bad case of COVID, and the first thing, as soon as I got slightly better, was to jump on a train. Mainly, it was a very, very slow train, and it went through this very strange landscape. So, and I said the first part was published as a little literary pocketbook by Stephen Hitchens, who does these extraordinary sort of origami publications, which can be a bit tricky to open, but this is how it works, more or less. And he was a great help in lots of ways, and doing kind of glitched images as well, which will also be in the book. That's an image, because my sort of text was a little book called Introduction to the Black Fens in the 1970s, which I found just by chance. It's all these black and white photographs, very bleak. Okay, so this is June 20. Standing water in meres, maintain our embankment, swaying water in meres on hard stands, swaying slightly on our scarp, combed green rose in the shape of a black lozenge, grey sky and rain to mark my dark massed escape. Loco Espresso is closed. Thank you for your cooperation. Operation Combed Green Rose, in my throat the shape of a black fen, rasps in the black lozenge grey sky and rain, our scarp combed to mark my dark massed escape. Standing water in my throat, the shape of a black fen, rasp in meres, combed green rose in the black fens, rasp in my throat the black earth. Thank you for your embankment. Combed green rose in the black fens, rasp in my dark massed escape. Loco Espresso is closed. Maintain our scarp, the black fens rasp in meres on our scarp, combed grey sky and rain to mark massed escape. Loco Espresso is closed. Thank you for your scarp. Combed green rose in the black lozenge, rasp in my throat, the shape of a black ear. In my throatans rasp in my throat, the black fens rasp in my throat, asp in my oats, rasp in my throat, attack fens rasp in my throat, throat fens rasp in my throat, black fens rasp in my throat, fens rasp in my throat, lack, fens rasp in my throat, rasp in my throat, in my throat root, in my throat ap, in my throat sp, in my throaty fens, rasp in my throat, black fens. 3. Black lozenge. Lozen, geozen. Lozen, g, lozen. Lozengek, lozenge lack. Lozengiem. Lozenge, lozenge black. So this is a result of feeding things into something called the Markov chain, which comes back with this strange rearrangement of text, and it became a sort of collaboration. This is November 20. She said her name was in November rain. You'll find it's tier 3. Lines that go on forever through a winter green field, or furrows filled with water, never fallow. Soil is compacted. I think of you, O fallow. For a year she kissed you. Said her name was to live among these exhausted fields. How lonely it was to live among these permanently harvested fields. Are those roosts or the last leaves? Lying low for a year, she said her name was fallow. I think of you, low for a year, she kissed you. I'm just getting to the trees. Beautiful shutters of Brandon. I'm not getting off. I'm just getting low. If you're lucky, a copse or a corpse of a field. Lying low for a year, she kissed you. The hedges grubbed out. There are those roosts or these exhausted fields. There are no grubs. Beautiful shutters of Brandon. I'm not getting off. I'm getting nearer my bike. The last leaves clinging to the soil, compacted, never fallow. Lying low forever through a wintergreen field, or furrows filled with water. All the hedges grubbed out. There are you, leaves clinging nearer my bike. Oh fallow, for a year she kissed you. Getting off. I'm just getting to the trees. Beautiful shutters of Brandon. If you're lucky, a copse. If you said her name was to live among these exhausted fields. If she kissed you, leave tier 2. Lying low for a year, she kissed you. For a year, she kissed you. This is February 21, and I was stranded on Ely Station, watching the freight. Your griffin is roaring with alarm. Your lion is clenching incisors. English, Welsh and Scottish engine changing frequencies. The griffin is rearing systems for fanning its wings, rearing backwards. Shut up, EWS freight going nowhere. The rooks are familiar with this siding at the top of the beaches. Catch the tune, wick wick, wick wick. EWS coughs and resumes its wheeze, its ek ek, ek ek. Two rooks parry near a nest building nowhere containers. The griffin has tucked its beak back into its throat. Contained containers. Florence, Hamburg Sud, Seco, TexMed, shipping. Occasional exhalation of a break, but never unbreaks. Queuing system for nests. Worked up to ask me. She wants 2 on a nest. Continue with nest building exercise. Wick wick, wick wick. EWS, your stag is roaring with pain. Nowhere a queuing system for nest building. Reach for my mask. She wants to know what train I'm catching. This is a platform alteration. She wants to know what train your griffin is familiar with. Your lion is clenching frequencies to a slow departure. St. George flag on the platform nest. Reach for my mask, but the griffin tucks up to an extreme effort. Florence, Hamburg Sud, Seco, TexMed, Triton, Evergreen. Rook on the overhead wire, fanning and sunning its wings, seeing us off or seeing company. I did manage to get out into the Black Fens and do 1 or 2 walks. So this is the Black Fens Trail, April 21. The word bliss in this context also refers to a very popular Microsoft screensaver in the 90s and noughties. These are the fields divided by a thin line of reeds, and I'm filled with bliss to see cloud shadows brush across the dark soil. And I'm filled with a bliss longing before the field and its animated shadows, because the screen began with monoculture. Although critics might argue that the field, furrowed to a fine grain, lacks a point of interest, it is inviting for the desk-bound computer user who forgot his bramble hedge at the bottom of the ooze embankment. A disorder of hawthorn and daisies, pink blush of petals. Below us the glass I cannot experience. Don't tell him, don't confess. This was our screensaver at the bottom of interest, longing for the raked soil, and I'm filled with monoculture. Something moving on the field. He forgot his binoculars, forgot his binoculture. He says, the dark rolling sod is relieved by teasel. Although critics might argue that the image is bland, it is inviting a pink blush across the raked soil. And I'm divided by teasel ticks, relieved by teasel argue, raised by teaselith, moving for the disorder of reeds. And this is another walk in February 22. This is from Ely to Little Thetford. It's not a walk I'd recommend. And this is for Gavin. Caudal fen, cold spring, to spew on us skeletal umbles. Excitable crows, teasel whiskers and hogweed, flatten against thorn. Broken old willow hanging on past all tillage. Lip fallen rut past all triage. Insect flattens against the page. Hello, perfect camouflage. Flatten against the bank. Wind whips up. Glad for a church reed open at Little Thetford, where gargoyles spew on us skeletal umbles. Glad for a pew fast against thorn and the gate-mouthed graveyard. Soaking up the unnatural heat, flatten against the church, feeling the gargoyles tongue to disorder, in a common space. Oh, a skylark hangs out its tongue, fast feeling like a space to be teaseled, for they are rewilding the church, and feeling like Sheila Nagig on a low stone, teasel and heat with my legs spread open, Nagigla to disorder. I always think of Geraldine when I think of Sheila Nagig.
Thank you.
So I probably stole it from her. This is April 22. Gets a bit darker here, if it can. Ely Cathedral Gothic. So much life in death. Changes everything, he said. Everything becomes meaningless. One perfect black strip. He seemed to mean no life at all when you have seen death. He meant that you can't be young anymore, brimming with water like a reservoir, entirely at our disposal, opening up and reflective, like a sequence of shutters or solar panels turning their faces to us, opening their faces to mean no life at all, when you have seemed to us reflecting our faces, reflecting our disposal. Turning becomes meaningless, yearn for a reservoir. When you have seen death, it changes everything in life. We are in Gothic, he said. Everything becomes meant, brimming with water, like a sequence of birds opening up and reflecting. When you have seemed to mean no life at all, in Gothic, so much. 7th of March 23. This is for Anthony Mellors. AM. Rusting caravans of the Iron Age. Little Port, I've missed you. I didn't mean to make fun of your corrugation. I didn't mean to make fun of your congregation, thrown along the trackways for my goodbyes. Honeycombed black earth, ditch shadows shake. Little Port, I've missed you. I didn't mean to make fun of your corrugation ache. Your corrugating caravans shake to the Bronze Age tracks. Rusting caravans of your cohort. I didn't mean to make fun of your corrugage. There will be snow in King's Lynn today. Good morning, stack of bricks. Good morning, gravel ballast held by reeds. Good morning, heartbreak. Snow swirled as we fell asleep by the stove last March. Good morning, white fleet of coaches. Good morning, white ballast held by reeds are. Good morning, heartbreak. Relax everything, I said, as we fell asleep by reed sting. There will be snow in King's Lynn today. 2 crows patrol the pony enclosure. Good morning, white enamel bath. Good morning, gravel ballast held by reed sinking. Good morning, heartbreak. Relax everything, I said, starting with your toes, as we fell asleep and snow swirled. 2 crows patrol the stove. There will be snow in King's Lynn today. Magnificent monkey puzzle at Watlington. The next station, going to meet you at, insert appropriate name. Going towards lighter brown soil, not wanting to arrive at, silt, not peat, insert appropriate name. Your lemon drizzle cake. The next station is, Anthony, you were always waiting at King's Lynn Station. PM. 3 hairs in 3 furrows. An Asian woman waves at the train. Why did he keep that poster of the Chinese girl? This woman waves from a field end herd of munkjack peaceably grazing 3 furrows, though I have no idea why she is waving or how he kept that poster of munkjack. Why am I here? Why was it so good? He was warm and loving. He was exasperating. Why did he keep that poster of the train? Why am I a herd of munkjack? The llamas foregather. Aye, he was warm and loving. No idea why she is waving at that poster of the Chinese girl. Why is she waving at the train from a field-end herd of people? Why am I here? Why was it so good? He was warm and loving. He exasperated a lot of people. She waves at the llamas foregathered. Why am I her? Why am I here? He exasperated a lot of llamas. Cumulus clouds mass against blue sky. Irregular forms above regular fields. The land beyond. The shadows, Kate said. I love the shadows in the fens. Like Microsoft Bliss, I almost said. But these are the ancient shadows of our trackways and fields. Today I want the trackless white clouds, unfielded, unherded, directionless. A flock of sedentary swans lift and shake the regular forms. I almost said, I love the shadows in the land beyond when they lift and shake their wings. I'm just going to finish with a little coda, which is almost entirely the work of Mr. Markov. Would customers wishing to leave, e.g. to leave meres and mers, would customers sing to leave us? Oh, wishing, itching to leave, veg and verge, e.g. comers sing ave, eve avers having to leave, emirs ishing to leave, stoners shing to leave, ormers hing to leave, e.g. leave, oh leafer customers, wishing to leave, to leave. Thank you.
I think I'm just gonna wait for people to come back.
I think the microphone
So I see the earring water, She's getting there.
Shame now, don't you?
That is a very good way to end reading that piece, I have to say.
Yeah, that makes me think that's nice.
Yeah, you know how it's affected.
Yeah, I told
Oh, you're right.
It's a wonderful film. Very
Okay, shall we? I was just going to say, Francis, that we've just come with my MA law from the special collections in our library, and maybe this needs to be sent to Amanda Burstyn, but we've just bumped into your beautiful collab with Judy, so the
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We have it then.
as well there. Okay, so thank you so much, Francis. Thank you so much, Simon. And there are some fabulous publications. I've just seen that Francis got quite a few various publications over there. So we will have a little time, not much, but we will have time to mingle and buy books once we've got through the second round, during which we will hear a reading by Peter Robinson, which then will be followed by Simon Smith. The two of them I'm going to introduce very quickly. So it's a sort of a welcome, it's a kind of welcome back to all of you, but especially to Peter, who I can't remember the last time. I think it was a pre-COVID event in a pub where we might have even suspected that something was going to happen. I'm not quite sure at that stage, but it was, I think, about just before lockdown, as far as I remember, in a very, very noisy pub, if you remember. So, sounds like you've got lovely memories of the evening. Anyway, so welcome back, Peter. Peter Robinson, for those who do not, who need some sort of an introduction, this is a rather modest biography I've got here, has published really various books. I will only name those that are sort of squeezed in this mini biography. So books of aphorisms, fiction, literary criticism, poetry, of course. For some of his poetry volumes, for some of Peter's poetry volumes and translations, he has been awarded, for example, the Cheltenham Prize, the John Florio Prize, and there have been also 2 Poetry Book Society recommendations for the writing. Peter's most recent collection of poems is Retrieved Attachments, which was a Two River Press publication, and the collected poems of Giorgio Bassani, translated with Roberta Antonini. This collection was published in New York by Agincourt Press. Return to Sendai, new and selected poems, is due from Mad Hat Press in the USA in very soon, September 2024. And to introduce Simon as well, so I don't have to come back here. And you don't have to listen to me any further. So anyway, briefly to introduce Simon, who is also returning to us really in many ways. Simon Smith is a poet and translator living in London. He has previously published 10 collections of poetry, including the selected poems and the complete Catullus translation. His latest books are Last Morning, this was a Parlour Press publication, and Municipal Love Poems, this was a Shearsman book publication, this was a UK publication. Both appeared as companion volumes in 2022. Same year, 2022, also saw the publication of Source, a collaboration with artist Felicity Allen, and representation of Rimbaud's Le Bateau Ivre. He's presently and currently working on a book-length series of prose poems, The Magic Lantern Slides. Between 1991 and 2007, Simons worked at the Poetry Library in London and taught creative writing and poetry at London South Bank University, the Open University, and the University of Kent from 2006 to 2022, and he's now emeritus reader in creative writing at the University of Kent. So let's start with you, Peter.
I have some very happy memories of reading in Sheffield. I'm very grateful to be invited back. I read way back when he was still alive with Roy Fisher in the drama studio, I remember. And I did indeed read just before COVID with Helen Mort in a pub where we were competing with a folk group playing below. That was the challenge of that particular reading. Just to give this collection, this little set of readings a bit of shape, I thought I'd read things over various years associated with paintings in one way or another. This one's called Talking to Language, and it was inspired in part by a painting of Giorgio de Chirico's from the 1920s called Conversation in the Ruins. So here's Talking to Language. Not much of the room remains, just two walls meet at a cornice with some peeling paper and raw brick. Its stepped edge hard against sky. Still, we've a door frame, the door ajar, a few sticks of furniture on a red rug, the pine board floor. And beyond this open-air interior, a brown-tinged hillside with greenish distance fading as far as the mountains. Here at a table, here's English herself, sat on the single-cane chair. Her hair in a chignon, she's wearing a chic evening gown like a hospital robe, one tender breast exposed. She's whispering phrases in my good ear. I'm half stood up as if to leave, a splayed hand palm down on the table, waistcoat a bit the worse for wear, yet still I'm here, and true, where else would I go from this neither in nor out? Dark clouds flare, guilt edging the horizon. What am I saying? Wide eye appealing to the woman in white, lips parted with an amorous look, distinctly mixed prospects fleck the sky. Is it anything to do with promises unkept, ineptitude, scandal, resentment only, or debts nobody should be asked to pay? You've taken the words right out of my mouth, she says, putting words into mine. Here's one which, just to give you, it mentions Mr. President in it, and I should say that there's a date on the bottom of it here, the 30th of November 2006. So that gives you the sense of which president it was. It's called At the Institute, after Charles Sheila. I just happened to be there in Chicago in in late 2006 and went, and this exhibition happened to be on, and this happened. So at the Institute, he was touching the hard edge where life and art met. I was gazing at precisionist cityscapes and furniture. And just so as I wouldn't forget, there in a stillness like peace and silence secured at some price, Mr. President himself was defending his own legacy, his bloody adventure. He was staying the course. He would get the job done. A refurbishment worker's too loud radio come thoughtlessly from an adjacent room. And just so as I wouldn't forget, there the artist looks at nature was a painter in his studio, touching the hard edge where life and art met. Here's one a little bit nearer home. This is called, this one's in the National Gallery. This is called Lorry Park Avenue by Camille Pizarro, 1871. Wisps of white cloud in a pale turquoise sky, Pizarro painted out of doors, and a church spire, its creamy stone, 2 or 3 passers by. He painted out one female figure. Her pentimenti could be seen still on the gravel, advancing towards me as a darker stain. Sydenham, in an early springtime, just over a century after, not far from the hospice where she worked, I could imagine finding us on that avenue again. Then here, as warmth has come at least, there are things to do with the past, like droplets on those steady leaves, her Solomon's seal after rain. And down by more leafage-filled gardens, the flimsy petal purple-hearted poppies bring home illusions of another life's occluded possibilities. With foxglove, iris, the night-scented stock, everything that didn't happen, disappointed, went awry, is back, as if making a mockery of how it was, or why. But lacking such things to do with the past, like this figure he had painted out, who fills the air with an indelible stain, there'd be no possibilities. They thicken into leaf, his flanking trees. Look now, it's as plain as plain. Going for interviews and failing to get the job seems to be, has been over the years quite a sort of inspiring occasion for me. And I'm a very prolific writer. I mean, Adam knows all about this as well. Anyway, this is the last. This one is about the last time I will ever apply for a job. I'm glad to say I'm pretty much beyond that. It's called. It's actually this is right up your street, Aggie. This one's set in East Anglia, another of the places where I didn't get a job. Yeah. It's called Drawing a Line, and it's written in 3 little quatrains, and each pair of quatrains, 6 quatrains. Each pair of quatrains is named after a painting by painting or drawing by Giacometti, and so it's kind of the the East Anglian architecture. And the Sainsbury Art Gallery, of course. Drawing a Line. Walking Man, 1950. Resilient squirrel with your dropped takeaway on a Dennis Lasden precipice. There's no need to freeze, though phased by this, because entranced I'll let you be, me moving over a glass-sided walkway like some ad hoc Giacometti, attenuated, needed sculpture piece, striding through the day. Still Life, 1949. Forgive me, cafe au lait coloured pigeon, still as you like on a grey concrete wall, you rabbits at your breakfasting off these central reservations, because we're located here in framed spaces, as if one of his much-hatched sketches on which each figure's found its own ground and outline in the phased approximations. The Tree, 1949. But wind through the tree, forgive me my dismay. I only heard you sighing as eyes closed on broad water's edges and strollers cooled their feet from landing stages. Then there was danger, ground suddenly shelving on a glorious day, as that architect called it, when warm, uninterrupted sunshine would draw such creatures from their habitats and home. I was lucky enough to meet, when I was a graduate student in Cambridge, I was lucky enough to meet David Inshaw, the painter who happened to be the artist in residence in the college that I was at. And I'll just read one of these poems from a book which has got his paintings in it and some with sort of matching poems. This one's called At Slader's Yard. Slader's Yard is a gallery in West Bay, near on the coast by coast in Dorset. It's an old fisherman's sail loft, I think, but it's been very beautifully converted into a gallery. And it mentions this one. It's about clouds, really, but also sort of sympathies with David and I's sort of art. We're both very keen on clouds. And it mentions Nordau and Lombroso, who were a couple of social Darwinists from the 19th century who had these theories of sort of human types and degenerate types, including artists with wispy beards and those kind of people. So this is kind of response to Nordau and Lombroso's theory of artists, degenerate artists. Well, it's got a kind of ring to it, hasn't it? Degenerate art. You probably know what that refers to, and what Nordau and Lombroso led to as well, for that matter. Anyway, here it is, Slader's Yard. There's a corrugated iron roof, its undulations flattened by settled years of lime green moss. It juts into repurposed space where stone wall textures are revealed, enhanced by sparser finishes, framed pictures hung against it. A dust cloud risen behind its hill, the portrait of one tree in moonlight, another strafing seagull. They emphasize the edges, letting on bare sail loft opposite, a dried grey wood interior where all the thrifty meanings start. Then me too, I'm a counter of clouds, come over the hills like this one, salmoning in a deepening blue. They fill up turning windscreen glass. You see, I put the car in too. Above West Bay's horizon, with a borrowed sharpness, focus from promptings given by that pink house under its precipitous cliff. Recounting them, you're at least alive to how this word cloud builds and disperses ideas like a Nordau's or Lombroso's, and how they're clouds themselves. These verses. Just a couple more. I've got one here which was inspired by standing in Via Venezia in Parma, where my wife comes from, which we visit fairly regularly. Just after the kind of the COVID period that we're all very grateful to be more or less out of, I'm sure. So we hadn't been to Italy for a couple of years, and there, coming towards me on the street, was the number 8 bus with Via de Chirico written on the front of it, and I just couldn't resist. So here it is, a sort of return to Parma, to Italy, after the COVID lockdown. Via de Chirico. There on the front of a number 8 bus, in Via Venezia coming towards us, that metaphysical destination gives me a shiver, a start, and I ask you, where is Via de Chirico? Supposing it's somewhere on the far side of town. But as it veers left the lights to Via Trento, you're coming back with, I don't know, intrigued by enigmatic directions now as the bus trundles on through a luminous dusk for the station. I can imagine it, though, in the spirit of that structure's saved facade, caught by honey-coloured sunlight, when, however warm pale stone, the frontage resembles a hollowed-out shell, a charm against split-level extension, while day has grown theatrical, staging encounters with gloves, fruit, biscuits, as mannequins from the lit shop windows point at Garibaldi in his square, and the same bus diminishes towards a curtain wall where dusk light shining up behind it promises a late postponed arrival. It conjures a 3/4 moon above Parma, in pink-tinged sky the pantographs strike through. Then more masked figures at a distance, goods train wagons disappearing down tracks raised over roofs in the town. And as they do, the fact of things confirms your residence here among them, the school kids biking home by way of such small factory remnants as lengthening shadows sharpen, redefine, and our metaphysical destination looms from the end of the number 8 bus line. And to finish off, I thought I'd just read you a new one. I was very happy, and I very much enjoyed and was very pleased to have the opportunity to hear a couple of New Zealand poets reading in London in, I think it was February or early March, Gregory O'Brien and Jenny Bornholt. And during Jenny's reading, there were some questions at the end, actually, and she was talking about how she felt as a New Zealand poet that she was rather under the radar, meaning that she wasn't quite as noticed as she might have hoped to be, maybe. And it just struck me that this metaphor of being under the radar, this sort of military metaphor, actually means being safe or escaping detection. So that made me think about the lives of poets. So this is called Shorelines, for Gregory O'Brien and Jenny Bornholt. How gratifying, as Browning said, when reviews of Asolando facts and fancies reached him on his deathbed. To be so pleased, if distantly, on the edge of things. But no, I couldn't tell you why his words come back to mind once more, idling myself beside an ebb tide amongst its littorals, ammonites, and fossils. When under cloud cover of a busy winter sky, 2 fighter jets boom overhead, practicing getting in under the radar, safely, soundly, above Earth's human shore, where silences, indifference, neglect, rejection, spite, reviews, all of that no longer stings. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Okay, I'd like to thank Aggie for inviting me to come and read, and thank the other readers. It's been really, really interesting to hear some poems I've not heard before. So I'm going to read from
Well, it's a booklet that we kind of, me and Felicity Allen, who is my wife and an artist, we put it together, this booklet for this reading. So here's the plug. It's called 27. I might come back to why it's called 27 in a little while. But it's in an edition of 27. Each cover is individually, each one has a picture of its own, basically. So each one's a kind of individual artwork in itself. And we are optimistically hoping that you might buy it. Really optimistically, we're hoping you might buy it for £27. Because the money is going to go to medical aid for Palestine. Clearly, the prospect of you having £27 for this is probably not terribly likely, but £10 we would be quite happy with. Anyway, that's the plug. And there's a few other things, other bits and pieces there, but I'm going to read from this thing called Magical Lantern Slides, which is talking to Denise, Geraldine earlier about how about prose and not being able to write it, and I found in it started really with the uprising at the in the US. And I started writing prose poems. I don't know why that happened, but it did. And this is called the Magic Lantern Slides. And I thought to explain this was going to be quite difficult. So I ended up writing a Magic Lantern Slide poem as the introduction and as the kind of explanation. So this is called Note. So this is a kind of, it's an anatomy of the sequence. The Magic Lantern Slides, a book-length sequence of prose poems consisting of a title followed by 11 three-line paragraphs or slides, which can stand alone or accumulate, where things, arguments, themes, solar systems, planets materialize, fade, reappear to disappear, pulsing. The three-line paragraphs or slides, either the precisions of lyric or nuances of documentary. Paragraphs could be photographs or a movie frame by frame, lyric or essay, so the breathing continues without me. Microplastics embedded in all human tissue, ghost particles, stars. Charles Olson's projective verse essay states, the poem must at all points be a high energy construct, and the field where all the syllables and all the lines must be managed in their relations to each other and the objects which occur at every given moment of composition. Furthermore, Olson asserts the objects must be handled as a series of objects in a field to hold exactly inside the content and the context of the poem, which has forced itself through the poet and then into being, and everything in it can now be treated as things, floating mobiles. The Magic Lantern Slides diverge from Olson's open field poetics in several ways. The most important is the treatment of the page as the field of poetic activity, in this case an enclosure to gather perceptual data, historical events, factoids, hearsay, gossip, more akin to the frame quadrat. The frame quadrat is a square frame with a purpose in field studies of outlining a sample area of ground to create species lists for each meter measured, to calculate the percentage frequency of species. Ecological neglect and catastrophe are sites revisited throughout the sequence, recurring. The living and the dead, measures of scale figuring the vital dimensions from deep space to quarks. During and after the pandemic, time seemed to collapse, memory seemed to disintegrate, bringing the dead and the living closer, cheek by jowl. Voices through paper-thin walls, whispers beyond, poems out of earshot, heartbreak and walking pace, homemade evidence of human habitation, provisional and permanent in black ink and the vacuum of space, blue skies, grey blue black oceans and green-leaved canopies, shadows, permeable membrane, skin, one note, one chord, punctured. My father, died 2014, recurs in dreams, initially sculling a coracle over the Atlantic to the New World, Prince Maddox's crew, later skims the surface, from bent willow rods and bark or ash, wrapped with tarred horsehide, to wobble in the outer reaches of the solar system. The measure, the fragment, the sentence, the paragraph, the quadrat, light year, solar, celestial bodies to microparticles, chorus to apercu, stanza and paragraph, lyric and essay, a subject, an attempt to try post Montaigne. Decals, soundings, quadrat, rooms, on note and chord. Bib, Rimbaud's boat, Conrad's heart, Mullen H, Spicer's Lorca and language, Scarlatti, Scott Ross, all 555, Basho, Tarkovsky's mirror, M. Norbisi Philip, Shostakovich 4, Homer, Mayer B, Critchley, Stevens, Malik, Denise Riley, Ovid and Atkins, P. Gizzy's Threshold Songs, Du Fu, etc. So these are all about 500 words long. So I'm afraid you got me in the end. I'm sorry about that. There are 60 of them so far, but you're not getting them all. This one's called Mirror. You are the first person, the aesthetic blank and closed in the one note, like a hand forming a fist, mandates the representation of the truth before the thing speaks itself, reporting back on the death channel for the ancestors. Cold liquid, silver or light, things breathe. Illuminations are weary, the light yellow, and I love you forever ambiguous and forever. Shimmer there, then almost gone, to half exist among the piles of rubble, brown at the edges, mind floating, the earth's tilt, the universe swivel, within my gift between, sea churn. You own my soul, do you need my data? Scattered on the breeze, scatters, writing enactments of my own. Own it, the next step from memory, remote as a half-life, disused fields. When is gone, lost? Keys form cues, magic and maglev, heart broken into email. Just the ghosts we are, puppet plays, comic strips, shadow boxes. I dwell in the pages with Martin Heidegger. This dwelling leads to that singing. In the ears, tinnitus. Lipstick, trousers, flesh writing itself. I am a carrier. The light weak and watery, and this the 1st of March. To emerge from basement cellars, the underground stations, faces white, eyes wide and hungry, the air gingery. Your well-being is my well-being put out to tender, staged, seeing everything in pixels, seeing everything first. Permanently readied at the end of the world, the sudden shifts in key, walking it out, the only freedom left. The silver and light, hand in hand, reassembles the self, dusting and ghosting. A transport, a transformation, a transfiguration, outward facing, tar sands or amber. An opportunity you recognize in the apparatus, a field in which to read the small print, and defined in the reflection, both ways without decay, is to relax and take time off. Two ways, voice and place. Subject, object, vis-a-vis, flipped back and accessible with entanglement. To see you travelling back, hitched to the cliche in the cold light of day, to the streets where even the ghosts are gone, and the things are other to each other, outside the terms of reference, ignoring the semaphore, stepping backwards to inflect or pencil in, personal, on your way. Squeezed through with Alice, case by case, radioed out, ham to ham, the altered angle of vision, which means we can't go on the same direction or are, and grace to allow for silence between reflections, between wasted hours, where outside the frame, they're outside the frame gone. The heart's valves and the radios form no new memories but winter sun in lockstep. The stars are full of light, but no meaning, shine dumbly on by a pool. I'm not even using the word dust, but here I am. Still, to perform the impossible miracle overnight, not to be mere magic trick or translation, never to have come means never to return, signifies never come back, or maybe it does return to the stars. The word behind my ear for later. And finally, 27. The reason why we... Okay, this is... My wife was born on the 27th of November, and my father was also born on the 27th of November, and there were 20 years in between them. 27 had no real significance, except for that, really. And also we discovered as we started to look at works of art, some works of art, that 27 appears quite at random very often in some things. And we've also bought a load of art that has the number 27 in it. So I always, on her birthday, write something to do with 27. And this is the one for this year. So, the what, content, which means I'm content too, filled brim full. Then there's you, and the ocean, always bigger, infinite, we know not yet. The tremor of the violin and the girl on a motorcycle, flick leaning in, steady down the valley towards infinity. To consider, I step onward, not look back when I'm gone up the hill. To consider the deep shadows across the sky and valley, usher them in, safe. Retuning attention in flight, memories returning to oblivion. The sleek machine of the quartet. I, like a dagger. The where, overwhelmed by the real and the now, and I, thinking, wobbling. You, precarious. You think, therefore onward to consider the moon setting, looming, white stone. Where is the is? Where the intimate letters, the silent waters? To consider I am white noise, a little dog who demands endless love, the checking back of moments, momentarily and in series, the heavy blossoms hit and run, the loss, a tear and tear across time, a broadcast, the radio transmitter switched permanently to on, the dial, the poem, the who, hug, intimacy, the what, huge distances, the ocean, a great heave of water, onward, just to sharpen the 4B and listen in, and the white flag of the page, its troubling neutrality and surrender, the ocean heaving and unsteady, its surface tilting, the earth tilting. To consider, often written at sunrise, press on, 3s and 11s, folding back, tuning and turning over, around and off. Anatomy of a system, the ocean where all the dreams float, the figures of onward. I'm the poem navigating my pain journey, will be to consider you gone, is to consider love, to consider meaning coming over into the word's articulation like a sunrise, to make a new world 3 by 11, a field, a grid of stretched paper. Birds complete the song for you and float above landscape, almost no sign of what looms in the milky fog. The when infinite, what was once miracle, the birdies, the bardies sing true, tuning the universe. Dandelion clocks popped out of time and stuff kicked by children into the future and touch. I'm a feeling made of card, writing from the other side, pressed forward, what flood? To consider the world becoming as the light rises, blues, slate greys, the rooftops tilting into the empty streets, and the dark houses sharpening each second, widening into road, coming over and clear, clarity emptying the view like clockwork, kaleidoscope and telescope to consider. To consider the why, to argue what is turned, turning and embodied by the tongue, to argue where the is, to find the infinite in the finite played on the ear, leaning into the curve and echo, to consider the coast, its shadow before and. The why, the real changes and challenges as we move through the world, when whispered close to closed. Signed off at the half moon, eyes on the road, turning into a lantern slide, and what a show to consider. Diamonds solar and polar, and the next 27 to consider why. Thank you very much.
Okay, Doc, so should we just grab the opportunity to spend your money wisely? There you go. Thank you so much for coming. Just one quick announcement, unless anybody else has got one. Mine is the 8th of May, so that's the final Centre for Poetry and Poetics event for this academic year. Yes, so it's the 8th of May, and it will be 6:30 in Lecture Theatre. I can't remember, but on this floor somewhere. Other than that, if anybody else has got any events to promote, I think we're quite hungry, I can tell from the faces. So do come, chat to the writers, and buy the books. Thank you so much for coming.